My name's Joe Knieven. I'm the director of the Wilmington Public Library in the Consortium of Ohio Libraries, and I will be the moderator for this session. And I just wanted to start by acknowledging the sustaining and champion sponsors for this conference: ECDI, Evergreen Collaborative Development Initiative, Equinox Open Library Initiative, Unique Management, Midwest Tape, and Stack Courier. And with that out of the way, I'd like to introduce Bill Erickson, the software development engineer at King County Library System, who will share, I should say, what's new at KCLS and why he and I suspect many of us really truly love open source. So I will stop sharing my screen and I'll stop talking.
Thank you, Joe. I will commence sharing mine then. And I don't have any pet pics in my presentation, but if an animal wanders by, I'll grab it. Okay, I'm gonna turn my video off for now too. So first of all, I want to come clean about the title of the talk here. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to talk about. So I kind of just came up with a generic title just to, have something in there because I knew I wanted to present. So if you were expecting, a big discussion about the value and beauty and amazingness of open source, that's not really what I'm going to do. Um, I do obviously love open source, so it's very true, but it's not really the topic at hand here. I I am I am a software development engineer at King County Library System, home of the 2026 Evergreen Conference. It's not loud enough to hear, is it? It's okay. Um, yeah, I'm really excited about that, and I hope I get to see as many of you there as possible. Um, and what I'm going to talk about today is just some work we're doing. We did a lot of work. Well, we're always doing lots of work. We're all always doing lots of work, and we did a bunch over the last couple of years, and two of the projects that we've been working on just finally got deployed this year, finally went live, and we're very proud of them. So I thought I would just do some demo, some discussion about those projects that we worked on. I don't have any big proposals or theme running through this or any messages. I thought I would just kind of keep it casual and show off some stuff. So that is what I'm going to do today. Feel free to ask questions. I may or may not notice them myself, but I'm happy to answer questions at any time because it gives me a chance to drink my tea. So I will move through the slides here. So as I said, these are two big local features that we had been kind of wanting to do for a long time, and one of which longer than the other. I'll get into a little bit of that, but they were both big for us. They're exciting deployments, and we're really happy about them. The first one I wanted to talk about was we implemented a process to manage refunds for lost, paid, and returned items. So the process that was in place up until very recently is very cumbersome and manual, and patrons had to first of all patrons had to know that they could get refunds, which is it's documented, it's on the receipts and things like that, but still maybe not everyone realizes that. So they had to know they could get refunds for lost, paid, returned items, and so then they had to come to the branch, they had to explain the situation, and then staff had to fill out a sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It was like an Excel sheet with a bunch of text in it that had some formulas that you put some stuff into, and then it would kind of calculate the refund, and then staff would have to kind of, I think, print that out probably and sign it, and then maybe there were other people that had to, circ supervisors, things like that, that had to sign it. So it was a bit of a thing. Um, And as also a part of that process, the policy at King County is that if you return an item within the time frame and it's in good condition and you're owed a refund, then the money that would be given to you for that refund is first applied to any existing fines or fees that you have on the account. Obviously, we don't want to give out cash if someone owes the library money. So that part of the logic was also had to be done by staff at the front lines and baked into this document that they had to compile. Um, and that document then eventually made its way, I'm not sure if mail or fax or whatever it was, it eventually made its way to the finance team. The finance team had to review all that, and then they would go through and issue checks or credit card refunds based on these documents. So it was a lot of moving parts. It was error prone, and there's just been a desire for a long time to automate this. The first time it was really mentioned at my time at King County was around 2016. And by mentioned, I mean we had a JIRA ticket entered to talk about this. Not like someone said it. It was we were taking it seriously at this point, somewhere around 2016, um, and or 2016. And it's obviously a complicated project. There's a lot of moving parts, but this one turned out to be a bit more complicated than most. And so it was kind of simmering along in the background for a while. It would kind of go in fits and starts. Partly it's a cross group project across different teams. So we had the business applications team at King County, which is the Evergreen team, and various other applications that that our ILS teams and other members of the library use. And of course, it affects circulation. It affects the financing team. These are the big groups that got involved. So anytime you have that many people working on a project, it's going to get a little bit complicated just for the communication and organizing parts of it. Project itself is also very complicated. Um, During the time we were working on the project, there was various staff, or excuse me, there was a lot of concerns about the fact that we are dealing with money here. So anytime you're talking about literally writing checks to people, you obviously need to be extremely careful about it, and there needs to be a whole lot of back and forth and a lot of review and a lot of understanding on everyone's part about what precisely is happening. So we took our time, as we should. There were staff changes along the way, long projects, people come and go. There were design changes. Initially, it was going to be the workflow is different. I won't go into it all, but there was a lot of different ways we were approaching it to begin with. And ultimately, I think we came on what is the better design and the more efficient way to do it. Um, but there was a lot of back and forth on how we wanted to manage that. There was a million pandemics, so everything stopped a million times, and that got right in the way of the heart of this. And then we finally went live at the beginning of this year, January 1st. The finance team was really keen to make this switch over at the beginning of the year because it is, a fiscal changeover. There is process changes, policy changes, all of this. So we started on day one with this new process. The another reason it kind of took a little while is we implemented this in two phases. The first phase was kind of the easy part, and this was we wanted to track what we consider to be refundable or potentially refundable payments in the system. So there's policy around what types of money that comes in can potentially go back out to patrons, and what steps involved have to be to consider that. Things like item types, the patrons being in good standing, and all of that. So the first part was simply collecting data about those payments, and one of the offshoots of that was that we could generate receipts more tailored to the patrons that might want refunds. So they would make these refundable payments. We could generate receipts that have all of the policy information and about how the refunds work and everything that could go into these receipts. And then the patrons could go back and print them and reprint them. And it wasn't like there was this one-time thing where you got this kind of canned receipt about a payment, but instead there was a more purpose-built receipt going on. And we started that one, and that one we rolled out years ago. It's been quite a while now. I'm guessing maybe 6 years or so. And that one rolled out, and it wasn't too impactful. It made some things easier for staff, but it wasn't such a big change. That one didn't really get finance involved. And then the second part was the automated refund processing, which is the part we just completed and deployed this year. And this is the part that does all the sort of magic. Um, so, in addition to simply knowing that a payment has been made that might be refundable, once a item that has been paid for has been returned, then it goes through various checks to, check information about the patron account, check information about other fines and fees the patron has, automatically taking money from the refund that would have been cut to a check to them and applying that to existing fines and fees to pay those down before any money goes out. And then ultimately making its way back to the business office so the finance team can cut checks and issue or credit card refunds. The the issuing of refunds via check or credit card refunds is not automated at this point, although we have big plans for that down the road, so that we can save those steps on the finance side. But as it goes right now, it goes all the way up to a data export, which is a CSV file that gets sent to the finance team. So I'm going to demo a little bit of what the staff sees for this workflow, and yeah, and take it from there. So I'm on my just a local dev machine here, um, and I have my local KCLS copy of Evergreen running with a bit of demo data. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just walk through the process of what a patron. Well, it's still the staff view of it, but it's the staff managing a patron transaction. So I think I have a barcode over here I want to pull up. Um, yeah, and I just saw Bradley's comment in the chat, and I don't know if I really stressed that very well, but because of the way it's automated now, patrons don't have to come into the branch to request refunds. All the refunds just happen automatically by virtue of the fact that the money is refundable. So patrons don't have to come to the branch. They will just get a check in the mail or a credit card refund. Okay, so I have this patron here. I happen to have some items already checked out. I'm going to go ahead and mark one of them as lost. And then go over to my billing page. This is going to be an expedited process. I lost the item and then charged. I'm going to go ahead and pay for it, or I'll just do a partial payment. $100. By that, we have some additional pop-ups that we do here. KCLS side, ABC, give a little note going there. All right, so now I've paid $10 toward the 1180 charge, and I still owe $1.80 at this point. And then, oh, look at that, I already found it. So let's check this item in, grab that barcode, open up my check-in page, check this item in, and then this takes staff to a new interface. See, this is kind of the crux of the latest version of the design. Initially, we were going to apply or automate refunds kind of after the fact as some kind of batch secondary process. And we didn't really have it nailed down. But then we migrated to this approach here, which is essentially as soon as the lost item is checked in, the staff are greeted with a form to fill out, which allows them to specify whether or not the item should be refunded, or if something else is going on that needs to be manually addressed. And the main issue here is the system will check that it's refundable. It will warn them if there are other fines and fees. And actually, I meant to put another fine on here just so we can see that. Let me do that real quick. Okay. All right. So the first time we check it in here, it's not actually checked in. It just gives you this pre-check-in page. So try that again. There we go. So this time we see that the patron has this lost materials charge and this manual charge of $2. It's indicating that they may be affected by this action if you choose to check it in and process the refund. And the big question up front is whether or not the item is in circulating condition. Of course, if the patron damaged it, we don't want to give them the money back. But if it's in circulating condition, staff chooses yes. And then we have various inner parts in Evergreen where we do request staff kind of sign off with initials here. Um, So it asks for those staff initials. And then if we do a check-in and process refund, it's going to pull up the generated receipt that the patrons will get. Um, and so this will list out, just information about the transaction, information about other charges where money was applied, and then indicating that, it was originally a $10 payment. We applied $2 to this charge. You are owed a refund of $8, and it will be mailed to you as a check because it was a cash payment and not a credit card payment. This will be printed out by staff when it happens, and the same data is reprintable from the staff client if you're over on the patron side and you go to the history, go in here. There's an option here to view the refund letter, and it will pull that up to reprint it. And then another fun thing is one of the things that often happen at this stage of the process is staff want to verify with the patrons that in fact their address is correct, because we may be mailing them something. So they can go over to the patron from here. Um, and then what are these fantastic addresses? I love them so much. We can change that out to something else, save that, and then oh yeah, we want to do a little signature there. And then that'll populate automatically over into our printout, and then I can print this letter out and go on from there. Now at this point, the the process has happened. So if I go back to the patron and I go back to my bills tab, I may have to refresh it because, yeah, okay, it doesn't automatically send it to all the tabs. But I go back to the patron side, and now this patron doesn't owe anything. The $2 charge is gone. The lost paid charge has been refunded. The $10 has been refunded via cash. The remaining has been rebalanced to zero. And everything is sort of resolved here. So next steps on the back end are that the every night, somewhere around 4 a.m. or something, I don't remember, a process will run that will find all of the check-ins that happened the previous day that are applicable for this, collect a whole pile of information into a CSV file, and then send that CSV file over to an SFTP server, which the finance team has access to, and they pull that down. They have it all scripted on their end, and then it goes into a custom interface where they can see and manage those that our team worked. I didn't do that part, but our team built that, and so the finance side can have a view into that information and manage that side of the stuff as well. So that is the staff view of our automated refunds processing. Again, replacing a bunch of printed out signed stuff with math and all that. So now the staff can just kind of click through all that stuff. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. How am I on time? Okay, yeah, still got plenty of time. The second one I wanted to look at was if you were here for the Aspen demo, then you're very lucky because you're getting not one, but two patron materials requests, discussions, and demos today. And I had no idea that was going to happen. So I was taking notes from their demo, by the way. This is another feature that we rolled out. This one, not quite as long as the, in the baking time as the previous one. So this is really maybe more of a year and a half, something like that, maybe 2-year project. Um, we just deployed it about a month and a half ago, and as of last week, I was deploying the last batch of high priority patches. So this is just went live. All the initial shuffle has been done. We have a as you might imagine, a huge list of features that we want to add. Still tons of work to do. One of the big ones that's around the corner that we haven't done yet will be email notices to demarcate some of the steps along the way as this goes through. But the project as a whole essentially is a way for patrons to request that we purchase items and or they request items through ILL. And the goal here was to have a single entry point that can guide patrons in certain ways, and then do some of the routing on the back end to help staff figure out how some of these requests should be handled. Um, so um, the couple of things that we wanted to make sure we baked into this, so it's not just a form that patrons can fill in. We wanted to automate some of the pieces. So the first one, account verification, this seems pretty obvious, but given that the previous solution was, again, a paper solution, patrons could go to different interfaces, print out forms, fill in things, drop papers off, mail them, what have you. I'm not fully versed on all of the manual steps involved there, but uh, it was basically anyone could submit a request. And then what would happen is staff would get those, and they would have to go through the process of making sure the patron was in good standing and was a patron at all, for that matter. And then it does other things, of course, like checking to make sure they don't owe excessive fines, making sure they don't have too many open requests, so that we can keep that flow of requests going into staff under control. The routing for purchasing an ILL is fairly straightforward. Certain material types are only available via ILL. We don't purchase items that are older than a couple years old. I think maybe 2 years, something like that. And that may be based on the format as well. Um, yeah. So that part's fairly straightforward. It's not too magical there. We do things like making sure that patrons don't have too many requests. We do things that making sure if someone requests something that's already in the catalog, then we kind of nudge them to use that instead of making an additional request. And then we have a UI on the staff side for managing all of this. And as part of that UI, staff can place requests for patrons. So if there's a scenario where patrons cannot or choose not to use the interface themselves, staff can enter that on their behalf, and they don't have to log in as them or anything. They can just do that in the staff client. So this one is, we're at a tech conference, so I got to at least mention some of the stuff that we're doing here. This one does have a little bit of new tech that I mentioned because I like it. So the first one is this is the first time we're using Angular material, and the first time it's being used for in a production sense for our system. It's the first interface we've built with it. We talked about this a little bit at one of the Evergreen hackaways, maybe more than one. It's Angular material is similar to Bootstrap, Angular Bootstrap that we use, and so it kind of serves the same purpose. It's slightly different in the sense that to me, it's a little bit more intentional and focused on a smaller set of functionality. It's really guided toward basically building forms, is the way I take it. It does do other things like cards and certain layout things, but it really excels at building forms that are sort of cross-platform and accessibility first and all of that good stuff. So I thought I would use this opportunity to really dig in and see how the Angular material works for us. And the good thing is it's really just the front end pieces. It doesn't affect the TypeScript or the back end stuff. It's just a change in the way we build the interfaces. It doesn't do quite as much as Bootstrap, like I said. So in addition to that, we're using something called Tailwind CSS, which some of you may have seen, and really just using that for structural utility classes. So like viewport, padding, um, and margins and all that kind of stuff. So I try not to overlap them too much. And then the other thing is I have to mention some Rust. We have a Rust-based HTTP gateway, which is a port, essentially a direct port from the C version of the open source JSON gateway, and it does the same thing. And then it has the added benefit of having a format option where it can send and receive hash-based data instead of sort of IDL encoded stuff. And if you've ever written code for Evergreen using the sort of the web services APIs, you'll know that one of the challenges sometimes is that you have to have you have to have knowledge of the IDL. You have to fetch it. You have to parse it, and you have to make use of that information. And since this interface was geared toward patrons, possibly on mobile devices, I thought that this would be a good opportunity to not have to do the IDL and not have to parse the IDL, not have to go through any of that rigmarole, but instead just do a hash base interface. And just I can post a link of that if anyone's curious. It's just a hash base org tree. I've talked about some of this stuff before. It's not that new or fancy. It's just another way to talk to the system. Um, but what it does, it allows us to write interfaces that use all of the existing Evergreen APIs, but without the requirement to do the IDL management. So there's some Rust in production for you. I got it in my talk. So back to the demo side. I'll start with patron view real quick. And well, actually, let me show you whoops, the more like what it really looks like. So this is our staging server, and this is what it would look like to patrons because we have these headers and footers, all the branded stuff going on. I don't have that on my dev machine because it's unnecessary and it just adds to the download, script time, and all that good stuff. So I have the scaled down version for development. But patrons come in here and we don't ask them to log in first because depending on the choices, we may send them somewhere else. So some of these things just tell you to go log in to this other service and try that out. But if you choose, most of the formats will prompt you to log in with your account so we can verify that you're allowed to create requests. And then I did skim past one of the things that I want to mention here. We do let them choose if they do not want to ILL an item. If they're specifically looking for something to be purchased for the branch or for the library system, then they can choose that to opt out of ILL as an option. Um, and then the form here, no huge surprises, but you can kind of get a sense of how the Angular material looks. It's a little bit different than the Bootstrap, so you get these nice little things kind of baked into for the required fields. I didn't have to code very much of what's going on here. Have to provide data and options, of course, but most of this is just kind of using Angular. Um, what is it? Reactive forms? Is that what they're called? And then the Angular material kind of overlay. But choose some options. I'll put in an old pub year, um, request an item, and then gonna offer to let me go see what's going on the items that I've already requested page. So this is my items that I've already requested here, and this is the one I just did. This is the one I did earlier, and because I put in such an old date, it knows it's going to be an ILL item. So then it's already giving you this warning here about canceling ILL items, which are it's a little bit more of a process than canceling um, other types of requests. And then you can, and this is like I said, we just deployed this, so you're only seeing so much information here. You only have so much control. But we will probably expand out what patrons can do here over time. And then one other thing I'll show is if you let me pull up a ISBN real quick. If you do put in an ISBN, it will see if we have it locally and then suggest that you, oops, instead just go ahead and place a hold on that, and then it'll just pop you over to our catalog page to place a hold for that. Um, yeah, so I think that's kind of what the patron side sees. Um, and we do automatically place holds, which is why we ask for the pickup library down at the bottom here. And then for the staff side, we are, okay, yeah, so we have a new menu here for managing patron requests. And I realize I've been going through my slides, not really looking at my notes. So I hope I haven't gone through too much. So this is the patron side, or sorry, the staff side. Um, this view of the interface was just deployed about 2, 3 weeks ago. Before that, it was a little clunkier and it was difficult to manage. I wasn't really sure what level of volume that we were getting for patron initiated requests for ILL and for purchasing. And I was a little surprised when we went live with this that it was getting quite the traction that it was. And I don't know if that's because it's easier to use in this format or if that's just how it's always been. But I think we're somewhere around 5,000 requests in the past month and a half or so. Now some of those will be rejected, I'm sure, but I think a lot of those, most of those by a long shot, were being processed already by staff. Needless to say, the list of requests I need to go through turned into quite a big pile of stuff, and there was a lot of pain points at the beginning when we first went live. So we've past couple of weeks we've done a lot of reformatting of this interface and done a lot of upfront grid or filtering that are more focused on the actual purpose of the interface. You can go in and get to the request that you need a little more easier. And so one of the aspects of the way this is designed is it's sort of treated like I hate to say like a ticketing system because that makes it sound so gross, but like it has an aspect to it where you can grab requests to work on them. So there is a sense of claimed items and items that I have claimed for processing. And in this case, claiming it means I am, going through the initial steps of the purchasing process, or I'm going through the initial steps of the ILL process. But the point being that you can claim a request so that other people that are working through this list don't have to claim it. So that's why we have the claiming filters up here, and then you can go through purchasing or ILL depending on which chunk of items you're working through, and then all the other filters as well. And then if you're on the front lines, there's an option here to create a new request on the patron's behalf, and that just pulls up an empty form that staff can fill out here. And it does all the same logic on the back end as far as determining how to route the requests and how they should be handled. And then for existing requests, they can go in here and, excuse me, you can go in here and modify various aspects of the request, and then move through. One of the way that the requests are completed at this point, depending on whether it's an ILL item or a line item, is the on the ILL side, staff, we have a menu here for where is it? There it is, create ILL item. And part of this process just automates creating like a stub record and a stub copy and entering in the ILL number so that it references the OCLC ILL number. And when you go through the process of creating this form, it links up to the request here and then automatically updates the ILL information here and indicates that the request has been placed and places the hold on behalf of the patron. So that gets sort of automated at the back end. And then there is one kind of clunky part on the purchasing side though, which is that you have to well, I guess it's actually the same for both. In both cases, you put in either the ILL number or the line item number. That's right. Um, and then once the line item number is in there, that's how it links up to this form over here. But on the purchasing side, once you go through the acquisitions interface, you create your line items to your purchasing, you get your line item number, and then you put the line item number in here to indicate that this is a patron request for that line item. Now, this is something we want to smooth over so that the staff can. It's one less bit of data that has to be carried over. So, but right now this is functioning as we wanted it to. It's getting the job done. So this is kind of the beta plus. It is live, so I guess you could say it is the general release for this. But as I said, we still have a lot of stuff we want to do to it to streamline that. Um, so let me see here. I'm just checking my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything I wanted to mention. Got through all those. Yeah. Okay. Um, I think I went through everything I wanted to went this or wanted to went through. I'm gonna check the chat here, see if there's any questions that pop up. And actually, I'll go ahead and just read through these real quick. Get my video going again. Is it possible to line up the request with existing bibs or other identifiers, if not in the ACK workflow? The So two parts of that. On the patron side, there is the part where if they do put in a reasonable identifier, then it will indicate to them that we already own the item, and it will push them in that direction. And if they something I didn't mention is, let me see if I can demo that real quick. If they put in a request, and where is that? Sorry, I got too many tabs open here. Catalog. For an item, but they choose not to they choose not to select that item and they want to create the request anyway, then it will indicate that in the interface, and that can help. Let me see if I can find that. There we are. That will let staff know that we do in fact have the item already in the catalog, and they can link out to there to see the item in question, and then do things like view place orders and pull up information about the existing line items. In this case, that's my demo database, so we don't have any purchasing going on here. But the end goal here is that if the request is going to be processed, then it will either end up as as a part of a line item or a ILL request. So it will eventually end up with one of those identifiers, one way or the other. As of right now, yes, it is only linked to ACT via the line item ID, and that's something that we want to improve upon. The Git repos are KCLS public repos. Um, we have all of our code. We're currently on 3.11. We didn't do an upgrade last year, so we're just on the verge of doing our 3.14 upgrade here. But yes, all the code is in our public repository. Um, to understand the server-side REST HTTP gateway uses for patron requesting feature. So yes, in this case, I am using the Rust gateway for the patron request side. That particular part of it wasn't introduced until about halfway through the project, and if we wanted to use the code as is on the broader community, it would not be terribly difficult to not require the Rust interface. It just happened to make some things easier going through this part. Though obviously I would love to use the Rust interface. But yeah, as it stands, there's maybe one or two APIs that where it actually matters, where it would have been pulling down IDL objects, and instead it's pulling down hashes. So those could be repurposed to just hashify the data in the API. Once the line item is entered, does that ensure that the hold is automatically placed on the on order record? Yes, Benjamin. Once the line item is placed, where is the staff form? So once you enter the line item here, um, the API call that it then makes on the back end links up the line item, and then it automatically creates the hold for the on order item for the patron. And one of the things that we don't do yet, which I want to do, is at that point sending an email notice to the patrons to let them know that the hold was placed, and then other email notices for perhaps the hold couldn't be placed, or the purchase was approved, that kind of stuff. If the library doesn't own the item and it doesn't use acquisitions, is there a way to link to a loaded record? Currently, no. Well, no. But that seems like a pretty straightforward thing to add, I would think. That doesn't seem like a terribly difficult addition. But no, right now it does assume ACK or ILL. Well, these projects, I'm demoing them, but obviously I didn't do all of this. There were a ton of people involved, and so big thanks to all the people on the KCLS side who, because there a lot of workflow, a lot of time spent at the drawing board trying to figure all this stuff out, and a lot of people working with code that's just right out of the repository, and we're having to deal with bugs as they come. Um, so just wanted to mention that. How does the patient request interface scope? Can you clarify that, Jennifer? Meaning, which patrons have access to it? Just reading on your follow-up there based on pickup library, home library. Um, I can provide a partial answer while you're replying, which is that so on the KCLS side, it is a single interface which is available to all patrons, regardless of home branch. There isn't really any scoping involved whatsoever. It's just assumed that you are part of the consortium and therefore you have access to this interface. That's not to say that you couldn't do that. It's just the way in which the interface is built on this side. Okay, so you're talking about staff, which staff have access to see what requests. I see, gotcha. There are permissions involved as far as like accessing too many tabs. There are permissions involved as far as accessing different requests and modifying requests and viewing requests and all of that kind of thing. So in theory, it would be fairly straightforward to add a selector here to view requests for my branch, but we haven't done that here. We process these requests centrally and didn't have a need to add an org selector there.
Bill, Tiffany had a question a minute or two ago. So if they ask for it to be put on hold, but it's not connected to a record, how does the system create a hold on a bib?
Well, in our case, as it's designed right now, it does require it to be linked to an ILL, or sorry, yeah, to an ILL, which ultimately has a bib record, or to an acquisitions line item, which ultimately has a bib record. Those are assumptions baked into the whole placement process. There is a bib record one way or the other.
Okay,
So if there were going to be some other way to link them to other types of items, that would require some thought.
that makes sense. And then let's see, I'm looking through here too. Simone had a general question, although I don't know. Let me get back there. What would it take to develop this for development like this to become a part of the official Evergreen release? That's
Well, if we're talking about the patron request side, I do need to mention that this was inspired by partial functionality that already exists on the Evergreen side. So there's been patron requests in Evergreen for a long time. The interface and some of the backend logic wasn't fully fleshed out, and I see that Tiffany has mentioned in the chat that she has already done some work on fleshing out some of the existing functionality there. So this is not completely out of nowhere that we're doing this. It is something that Evergreen already has bits and pieces for. We went, we added a lot of stuff to it, and a lot of it is somewhat geared toward our workflows. But there's nothing in here that couldn't be modified or rearranged or, made to fit the broader community.
Yeah, it looks like Tiffany kind of answered that too there with what she shared. Thank you. And I don't intend to cut this off, but I do want to say that it is the hour. And Bill, I wanted to say thank you very much for a fantastic presentation. I enjoyed it a lot. I suspect that everybody else did as well. Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys. See you next year.
In person.
Yes.
It'll be awesome. And as we're kind of winding down here, I just wanted to remind everybody that the online social hour is in exactly 1 hour. And beyond that, the next session is tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. I think I'm doing my math correctly. So I look forward to seeing all of you either tonight or tomorrow morning. Otherwise, have a good evening.